Ty really stands up for herself. Quinn tastes the rainbow while dealing with some major depression. Angie is developing a new relationship. And the threesome is continuing between Camille, Ian, and Jameson. And wait a minute, did Camille sleep with Jameson? Stay tuned. I just want to address the 2-episode release that they do each week. Truthfully, I feel like the first episode always feels like the intro or the setup to the next one, because that second episode always seems to bring more of a punch. That's just my opinion. So covering both episodes, first up, we got Ty. My storyline these 2 episodes was kind of weak for me, as the focus was a little more on Quinn, of course, and Chameleon. But what she was dealing with was definitely powerful. And I'm sure it resonates with women who may be trying to make the decision whether to freeze their eggs or not. She's struggling to inject herself, which is understandable if you're not someone who's either a diabetic or someone who's used to injecting themselves. I'm pretty sure that's kind of scary. And it was the pep talk for me, y'all, that she had in the mirror.
Done harder things. You built a company from the fucking ground up, bitch. You are a lion.
I am a lion. Listen, sometimes you gotta speak to yourself, okay? For a brief period, she interacts with this plant lady, Amy, as she calls her, played by guest star Rachel True. You probably remember her from Half and Half. I'm not really sure where they're going with this. I don't see any chemistry if that's where they're headed. Or maybe she's going to be a helpful guide or mentor for Ty on getting past her hangups with commitment issues. And initially, Ty is still dealing with her ex, and they finally come to an agreement that he was getting half. Who child? $1 million. Oh my goodness. So Ty, of course, is upset, and at this point, she's thinking about sabotaging her own app so not to pay him this money. And of course, she can't let that go. I mean, the business, that's her baby. Like she mentioned, she built this business from the ground up. And so a couple tells her at the Pride Parade that she really helped them. So she goes on with the divorce, gives him the money, where they specifically tell him, hey, you cannot contact her again. And what does he do? He shows up at the door anyway. Now, he was wrong for that, but fortunately, this caused Ty to really let him have it, and they have a real conversation, and he tears the check up. Ooh, listen, now we know this TV. $1 million. He shouldn't have been asking for it to begin with, but come on. If somebody got $1 million, do you really think they was just going to tear it up? No, probably not. But I was really happy about that. Angie's storyline is taking somewhat of a turn. I think she's attempting to grow up, but it's Angie. And she temporarily moves out of Quinn's house to house sit for her ex, the dude that, is bisexual, that she was messing with. He's leaving, so she's house sitting, which in turn makes Quinn upset that she's leaving, which this is all about Quinn's own personal issues, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Angie's struggling in this new role on Hallmark. She's dealing with I'm sure, racism that women of color may face in the entertainment industry all the time. She's in this makeup room expecting to get, dolled up for the show, and she's basically left high and dry because the stylist evidently doesn't know how to do black hair and just skips right on out, and along the way belittling her and just playing oblivious in the process. This is when Countess Vaughn shows up as a guest star, and it was really good seeing her for a very short period, but she basically acts as Angie's conscience during this whole hair moment. And throughout all of this, Angie's getting really chummy with Michael. They're getting pretty close. Dare I say, almost playing house. That escalated quickly, for me, anyway. He's already calling her girlfriend. Now I'm curious as to what is going to happen when he finds out she's Quinn's friend. And speaking of Quinn, y'all, I'm wondering if Quinn suffers from depression, because that whole being this sad after a breakup is a bit much considering the short amount of time her and Isabella were together. And initially I was like, y'all friend hurting and y'all missing it, right? You gotta pay attention to the signs. She tries to cover up her sadness by putting it all into the gay pride day, to the point she really did look like, y'all, like she threw up a whole rainbow. She was Rainbow Rick James for me. And I was actually glad she finally broke down and said to Ty, look, friend, I need this day. And Ty was a really good friend in this moment, and I loved her for that. But then Quinn gets really dark, looking really like I ain't had a bath in 3 days. Dark. When she cursed that lady out and said, do you ever be quiet? I was like, yeah, our girl need help. And her mama. It's really no wonder why Quinn looks for love like that, because the mama is severely lacking in compassion. And I was like, just hug your daughter. Like, what do you think about Jasmine Guy's character as this mom? Then finally, Quinn really gets vulnerable and, shoots a message out to her friends saying, hey, I'm not okay. I really need y'all. And they, of course, came through. And I just really love their friendship. And I think this is very achievable. They just keep it real with each other. And that's why it works. And you can't be afraid to tell your friends you're hurting. And I know that as women, a lot of us have that problem. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be looked at as weak, or, feel like our friends may be judging us when we're going down a, spiraling depression, like a path. And honestly, that's when you need to be really talking to your friends. And if they're really your friends, they shouldn't be judging you in this moment. So I really liked how they did this whole particular scene. Now for this Ian, Chameleon, shall I say, and Jameson triangle. Camille still hasn't told Ian that she may not be able to have kids. And that's already a setup for disaster, because, communication is important in a relationship. Then she turns around and runs into Jameson, awkward, who's submitted this grant for the both of them. And, honey, he throwing all kind of shade left and right.
Back when you were trying to find ways to impress Dr. Pruitt to get tenure, when we were a couple and happy.
Bitter, maybe. However, this is a good opportunity for Camille, but she declines. Because, she don't want Ian to feel no type of way. And, I think she just like, hey, this is really too soon. Meanwhile, the professor is in trouble for a white girl plagiarizing not only her work, but her identity. This in turn has the professor needing Camille. They're starting to peel back some layers slowly on her. She's still hella rude, but we see a soft side to her. And this tough love is coming likely from this broken relationship that we see with the hint of the phone call from her daughter, which I'm guessing may be a drug problem, or maybe it's a mental health related. And I'm saying that based on her mentioning, why was she talking so fast? And now with all this going on with the professor being in trouble for identity theft, Camille now has to also prove her identity with the college. So she has to go meet up with her mom. And for the first time, we get a peek at their estranged relationship, because it's never been really explained in the storyline why they're so disconnected. Apparently, her father died young, and her mom pretty much checked out in order not to deal with the grief. And I feel Camille felt like she was raising herself, maybe because her mom would be off in La La Land, so not to cope with the loss. I thought this could have been explored more, and it still left a lot to understand regarding their relationship. And hopefully they'll dive into that a little bit more later on in the series. Meanwhile, Ian has seen this text from Jameson, and he shows up to meet Jameson and said to essentially find out Camille been lying, So he confronts her, and as he confronts her, she accidentally spills the beans about possibly not being able to have kids. Now, when they're having this conversation, Camille gets mad because she interprets it like they're trying to tell her what to do. I think sometimes she takes the whole feminine power thing a little bit too much, because they weren't trying to per se give her permission. I think he was coming more from a, hey, I support you, so you should take the job. He should have worded it better, but he was just trying to let her know, like, hey, you ain't got to worry about me as far as your ex go. Is this a good opportunity for you? I don't want to mess it up for you. Like, I don't want to put myself before your work, because this is literally what happened the last time. So you see how easily misunderstandings can happen. So I think she kind of received that wrong. That's just my opinion. Far as her not telling him that she saw Jameson, I think that was also an overreaction on Ian's part, because why I gotta tell you I saw my ex? Where duh, we worked that together. Obviously, I may run into him. That doesn't require a whole conversation, in my opinion. Especially if y'all not trying to holler at each other. And at the time, that is definitely not what was going on. It was just, hey, she saw him in passing. He told her about the grant. Moving on. Duh, we worked that together. Obviously, I may run into him. That doesn't require a whole conversation, in my opinion. Especially if y'all not trying to holler at each other. And at the time, that is definitely not what was going on. It was just, hey, she saw him in passing. He told her about the grant. Moving on. Here comes the real issue. Them working together, though, may be too much for Jameson. He is clearly still very much into Camille, especially with all the shade he been throwing. Like, he been giving real Nene right now. Like, for real. I think that as far as Camille goes, she like Jameson, but her heart is really with Ian. But now we got this temptation there, and y'all didn't end up in the bed together. Okay, but let's break this down and think about why. They were working late. You could tell it was already dark when they had started working, and she probably fell asleep. But why did you fall asleep in his bed? And her and Ian just said no more secrets. So how's she going to explain this, y'all? You fell asleep in the bed with your ex. Violation. That pretty much wraps up these 2 episodes, with one last caveat talking about the episodes coming up. The girls are likely going on a girls trip to cheer Quinn up. And I'm imagining this is going to be hella funny. Then we got to deal with the aftermath of Camille in this bed with Jameson. So she's probably ready to go on this trip just to get out of Dodge. So it's really perfect timing. What do you think about this season so far? And will this break up Chameleon? Thanks for watching. I'm Shay. You just watched another review from Click Play. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.